and Learning at IIE, and Julie Bayer, Research Specialist, presenting Open Doors data for international scholars in the United States in 2021-22. The webinar today, which is being recorded, is part of the IIE Network Engagement Series. The IIE Network is IIE's long-established global membership association of over 10,000 international education professionals from more than 1,500 organizations and institutions. Through this community, we aim to advance international education through shared resources, tools, and thought leadership. Membership is available to organizations and individuals. Organizational membership is recommended for higher education institutions, nonprofit organizations, companies, and governments around the world to join the IIE network to leverage benefits for institution or organization and several employees and staff. Individual membership is available to professionals, students, and retirees who are unaffiliated with an organizational or institutional member and want to become or remain involved with IIE, the IIE network community, and the field of international education. The various member benefits support advancing strategic interests in international education, such as professional and industry resources, research and data, organizational visibility, benefits to students, and member-exclusive discounts to events, advertising, and other services. The IIE Network membership team recently introduced a new member portal, an upgraded platform providing an enhanced member experience, allowing users to access more benefits in one place and connecting with fellow members and IIE. Welcome new members to join. Learn more at iie.org IIE Network, or be in touch with membership at iie.org. Mirka and Julie will begin with a 15-minute overview of the Open Doors data. Then we invite you to participate in a Q&A portion. At any time, please insert your questions into the chat, and we will try to address as many questions as possible at the conclusion of the presentation. So let's get started, and over to Mirka.
Thank you, Leah, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in. It is a beautiful February day here in New Jersey, and even better for our team because we just received the hard copies of the Open Doors 2022 publication. Now we will discuss this more at the end of the webinar, and we might even get a sneak peek of one of the books. But I couldn't help share this amazing news because our newest publication is now available for purchase and distribution, and Julie will share more details about it later in the webinar. The newest scholar data we are releasing today is featured in this publication alongside tables that present the holistic picture of international scholars in the United States. So let's get started. The Open Doors report on international educational exchange is the most comprehensive resource on international student and scholar mobility flows to the United States and US students studying abroad for academic credit. Now, most of you know that Open Doors has been produced by the Institute of International Education for over 70 years, and we're so happy to have the support of the US Department of State and its Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs on this project. Many of you may also know that the Open Doors report is actually 4 separate surveys. And so for today's presentation, I'm going to be focusing on the International Scholar Survey, or the one here you see in green. I will first provide an overview of the survey and our approach. So on the next slide, what we will see is who answers our survey. So each year we send the Open Doors International Scholars Survey to nearly 1,700 US higher education institutions that report hosting international scholars. Now these institutions, as you can see, span every state, Washington, DC, and our US territories, as you can see depicted here in the map to the right. And on the next slide, we actually see who we count in the Scholar Survey. So our definition of an international scholar has not changed. It includes individuals who travel to the United States on non-immigrant visas for temporary academic activities and who are not enrolled as students at their institution. So for example, this can include postdoctoral students, visiting lecturers and researchers, and short-term scholars or visiting specialists. And finally, this is the third year that the Open Doors Scholar Survey shows the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The survey covered the timeline between July 1st, 2021 and June 30th, 2022. Now, if we put this data into context, we know that during this time, campuses across the United States were reopening, particularly going into the 2021-22 academic year. And as we reported in the fall 2021 International Student Enrollment Snapshot, in the fall semester of 2021, 99% of responding institutions were holding classes in person or implementing a hybrid model. So many of the students, faculty, and staff had indeed returned to campus. We also found that on campuses, many COVID-19 restrictions at the time were lifting, including restrictions on on-campus events, travel, class sizes, and housing. And these changes likely affected international scholars as well, as their ability to travel to campus to teach or conduct research was increased, as well as their ability to conduct activities in person once they were on campus. So within this context and the time frame that we will be reporting on, I'm now happy to share some insights into the Open Doors Scholars data for 2021-22. There were 90,891 international scholars in the United States in the 2021-22 timeframe. And this was an increase of 6% from the previous year. Now, most institutions indicated to us that this rebound was due to lifting restrictions on scholars' appointments and the reopening of travel for research and teaching purposes. Similar to the findings we discussed last fall regarding international students, this points to the commitment of U.S. colleges and universities to host international scholars on their campuses. If we look at 20 years of international scholars data in the United States, we've seen very progressive growth to a high of over 136,000 in the 2018-19 year. Now, again, over the past 3 years, we have seen the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on scholars data, with a 2-year decrease from 2020 to 2021 of a total of about 37%. Now, while we are not yet seeing a full rebound to pre-pandemic totals, we are seeing a positive trend in numbers this year. International scholars in the United States were primarily from China and India. And together, these two countries made up over 38% of all international scholars. However, we can also see in this map that international scholars continued to pursue research and teaching activities in the United States from every region in the world. Now, looking at the top places of origin, we do continue to see a large decline in total international scholars from China over the last 3 years, with a decline of 26% just this year. In comparison, we do not necessarily see the same level of decline in other countries. For example, the growth in scholars from India has been in the double digits, with 17%. We have also seen an increase in students from South Korea. In addition, we have seen robust growth in European countries that have fared also very well, and international scholars from Germany, Italy, France, and Spain have also seen significant percentage increases. As we've noted in the past, the findings here indicate differences in travel restrictions and realities of the COVID-19 pandemic in different regions and places of origin. We have seen sustained COVID-19 travel restrictions from China, including in the 2021-22 academic year, that affected student and scholar appointments. And what most institutions told us was that there were various factors that led to the declines in Chinese scholars, including limited travel availabilities. We will be watching this data closely in the coming year, and the variable trends regarding Chinese scholars, particularly due to the fact that they are the #1 sender of international scholars to the United States. Now, when we look at regions of origin of international scholars, we see the adverse effects of the COVID-19 pandemic in the last 2 years, specifically on the total number of scholars from Asia, and then some variable trends since. Now, before the COVID-19 pandemic, the total number of scholars from Asia had increased significantly to over 80,000 international scholars from Asia alone in 2018-19. However, the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic significantly decreased these numbers in the last 2 years. And what we are seeing now is an interesting and varied picture, with India and South Korea and other Asian countries' numbers increasing, while Chinese appointments still quite low. The total average of this is a decrease of 5% across the Asian region. All other regions increased, and some quite strongly. We saw a 27% increase in Europe, a 30% increase in scholars from Latin America, and a 50% increase in scholars from sub-Saharan Africa. Now, while no region rebounded back to pre-pandemic levels yet, this does show interest and resumed travel for international scholars from these regions. International scholars in the United States primarily conducted activities at US institutions in California, Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, and Texas. And there were increases in a majority of the states that were hosting international scholars in the 2021-22 academic year. I'm now going to introduce Julie Baer, who is going to share some more insights about international scholars and their appointments.
Thank you so much, Mirka. And I'm happy to speak a little bit more about the profile of international scholars in the United States, beginning with the type of activities that these scholars pursue. So most scholars, or 3 out of 4, conducted research in the United States. And I will say that research has traditionally been the primary activity of international scholars in the US, as we see here when comparing this data over the past several years. In addition to the 76% of scholars conducting research, approximately 9% were engaged in teaching activities. Now, there has been also a slight uptick in the past couple of years in the proportion of scholars who engaged in both research and teaching, which represented approximately 8% of the scholar population in the most recent academic year. When international scholars come to the United States, they specialize in an array of fields. And I want to highlight, though, the fact that the majority of scholars, approximately 79%, conducted activities specialized in the STEM fields, which includes physical and life sciences, engineering, health professions, math and computer science, and agriculture. As you can see here, the most popular field was the physical and life sciences, with 40% of scholars engaged in these activities. There was also, though, a smaller proportion of scholars who conducted activities related to the social sciences, as well as business and management. What I find also particularly interesting is to look at this information over time. And when we look at these leading fields over the past 5 years, we very much see how the COVID-19 pandemic affected scholar mobility across not just one field, but really all fields of specialization. So, and then as we look forward to the data from this year for 2021-2022, the rebound has also led to growth across many of these fields. So for example, if we look at the number of international scholars in that physical and life sciences field, which can be seen here in teal, we see that this trend was on an upward trajectory before the COVID-19 pandemic. Then over the past 2 years, amid the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, the declines in this field really mirrored that overall trend that Mirka was just speaking about. Then in 2021, 2022, there was a 6% growth in the number of scholars in the physical and life sciences. And we see this type of uptick across many of the leading fields. Now, another important metric that we began to collect several years ago was the duration that a scholar is in the United States. And since international scholars conduct a wide array of activities, from leading research projects to attending symposia, the length of stay can vary quite significantly. Now, amid the COVID-19 pandemic, we had noted a smaller proportion of short-term international appointments, and that was due to positions being temporarily frozen or deferred. And aligned to that, we had also noted an increase in mid-length durations due to scholars who were already in the United States extending their appointments. In 2021-22, there's been a notable uptick in the shorter term appointments from 24% in the prior year to 31% this year. This is likely due to an easing of COVID-19 travel restrictions and fewer institutions suspending new international scholar appointments. Now, among these shorter term durations, we noted particularly strong growth in the proportion of international scholars in the US for less than 6 months, which more than doubled this past year. Mid-length durations continue to be the most popular length of stay, with 39% of scholars in the US from 1 up to 3 years. And then finally, the number of scholars engaged in longer term durations of 3 years or more has really remained consistent over the past several years. Now, as COVID-19 restrictions have been lifted on US campuses, fewer institutions reported continued adverse effects on international scholar mobility, specifically due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, over the past 3 years, institutions have reported to us on how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected their institution. And there are a couple of areas in particular that I want to highlight. So amid the height of the pandemic, approximately 2/3 of colleges and universities had cited that their facilities, and that can include housing, libraries, or research labs, were closed. But in this year's data, in 2021-2022, only 27% of institutions noted closures. Another area that we've been closely monitoring was if institutions continue to freeze scholar appointments. In the prior 2 years, nearly half of all institutions had noted suspensions in new scholar appointments. However, as of 2021-2022, only 21% of universities noted continued freezes among these scholarly appointments. Now, before we conclude today, I also want to share a little bit about the myriad ways that US institutions have been supporting both new and continuing scholars amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, here we have the past 3 years of data to highlight these extensive efforts that US colleges and universities have taken to support international scholars. What we see here is that most colleges and universities have continued to prioritize communication with scholars, either in welcoming new scholars or supporting scholars already in the US. The vast majority noted continuing to provide information about health, safety, and well-being, along with information on travel and visa procedures. Another area that we wanted to highlight is that while many institutions continue to provide virtual support, given the widespread use of technology, we did see that fewer institutions were providing extra virtual resources for scholars engaged in remote teaching. And this is likely due to that return to in-person, whether that's return to in-person research or return to in-person teaching activities for these scholars. Now, I know that we have gone through a lot of information very quickly, so I do want to highlight where you can access all of this data going forward. In the first place is, as Mirka mentioned at the top of the hour, is through our Open Doors 2022 publication. And this year's publication, once again, includes both written analyses and insights along with data tables, not only on international scholars, but also on international students, US students studying abroad, and students at intensive English programs. The publication is a wonderful resource, and you can purchase your copy in our bookstore now. And as Mirka said, the publications are just going out right now. They were delivered to our offices this week. And I'm happy to share that those who have purchased or are receiving a copy through our IAE network should be receiving those copies soon. The other area where you can access information is our Open Doors website, which is opendoorsdata.org. And we definitely encourage you to check out all the updates we've made to this website, including all of the published 2022 International Scholars data. And you can access the Scholars data in two places. The first is by clicking the annual release page up in the top right-hand corner. And this is where this presentation will be posted right after the presentation. And it is already updated with infographics, key findings, and data tables. The other place you can access all this information is by clicking on the International Scholars green tab, which will take you to all of our data tables and information as well. Now, as we look at this website with all of the findings posted here, there's a lot of work that our team does to put together and produce these findings each year. And as such, I want to acknowledge and thank our colleagues Nora Nemeth, Natalia Andraco, Ashley Halanda, and Kyriaki Mihalakis for all of their support of this project throughout the year. And in addition, of course, we do want to thank all the U.S. colleges and universities who completed this year's Open Doors survey, many of whom I know are listening to the webinar today. And as always, we want to thank our colleagues at the Department of State who continue to support this work. We encourage you to be part of the conversation and through sharing your thoughts around this data on social media, and of course, in the discussion that we will now have in our open Q&A. So with that, I will turn this back over to Leah to moderate our discussion and any questions that you all have about the data.
Thank you so much, Julie and Mirka. The presentation was wonderful. We do have some questions that are popping into the box here. So I just want to start with saying that, yes, this session has been recorded, and Mirka is highlighting the Open Doors book for everyone to see, hot off the press, quite literally hot off the press, arriving today to IIE and the State Department, and to all of you who have one as a survey respondent or as a IIE network member in your mailboxes soon. So let's actually get started with the very first question that came in earlier in the session. Mirka, maybe you would like to take this one around gender, understanding what is the current gender distribution of international scholars? How has that number between male and female changed over time?
Thank you so much for that excellent question. Indeed, we have so much more information in our international scholars tables in the book. And so it's very easy to identify some of this data that we may not have presented today, because there is so much more data that is available in the publication. And so just very quickly going to one of the first tables that we have on international scholars in our publication, the distribution by gender hasn't changed much over time. And in fact, when we look at the last 5 years or so, the distribution is always roughly about 40% female and 60% male. And I think that was a very similar distribution this year as well. But I do want to add a really important component and change that we actually made to our methodology in the last year. And across our Open Doors surveys, so all surveys that are done for the Open Doors report on international educational exchange, we actually updated our gender definition to not only include male and female, but also non-binary. And so even in our first year of reporting on all three categories, we found that 0.02% of the international scholars in the United States were non-binary. So across these three categories, we do find that there are international scholars who are coming to the United States to pursue research and teaching.
Thank you so much, Mirka. So we have another question here. Actually, let's just take a little housekeeping here about the slides from today's presentation and the recording. Julie, do you want to share where everyone can access that information?
Absolutely, yes. So all of this information will be made available. We will be putting the recording for today along with these slides on our Open Doors International Scholars annual release page. So if you go to opendoorsdata.org in the top right-hand corner, you'll see a big blue button that says annual releases. Once you click on that, you'll be given the option to check out the data for all 4 of our surveys. So if you select the button on International Scholars, all the information will be on that page where you can access it.
Wonderful. I also see that we have a question about whether Open Doors will be available in a digital copy, and we are very excited to share that we are soon ready to release that. So keep your fingers crossed. It will come out for the 2022 edition, but we ask for your patience as we finalize that product. The print edition is available now as of today for ordering.
This is Leah's favorite question because Leah has been furthering this effort for us, and we are just so excited that starting with this year, starting with the 2022 version, we will have a digital publication available, and we will have a digital publication available moving forward. And so for next year, Open Doors 2023, we will actually have both a digital and a print version available right during the release in the fall as well.
Thank you. So now I'd like to actually just jump to some initial foundation questions here so we understand who we are talking about. There is a question here asking about, does the Scholar Survey also capture the number of academic scholars who come to the United States as refugees? And if so, how has that number shifted over time?
So I can get us started here. So our definition of an international scholar does not include refugees or asylees at this point in time, as we are looking at international scholar mobility. So we do not collect statistics on that.
Thank you, Julie.
Go ahead. And just to clarify who we do include in terms of the fact that our definition has not changed. So we are including scholars who are on non-immigrant visas, who are pursuing academic work or academic work in either research or teaching in the United States. And they are also, if they are not students, and that is an important, another important component of who is and isn't included. If you would like to know a little bit more about what categories of visas are included, and I see another follow-up question here about J1. Again, you can go to our International Scholars tables in the publication, and we do have the visa status of our international scholars. And so who is included are the J1 scholar visa. That visa is included, and a vast majority of our international scholars, about 57.8% in the last year, were on that J1 scholar visa. I don't know, Julie, if you want to specifically say J1 interns, but I do believe it's specifically J1 scholar that's included.
Right. So if that individual is meeting the definition, as Mirka said, of they are coming here to the United States at a U.S. higher education institution to conduct academic activities, then they can and should be included within that J1 category.
Thank you both. Now I'd like to turn to a different question focused on funding. Do you have any data on who is funding the international scholars? Is it the host institution, the home institution, a third-party agency or organization? What can you share with us there?
Julie, would you like to chime in on that one?
Absolutely. No, it's such a great question. Unfortunately, at this point in time, that is not something we collect within Open Doors. So we do not have any insights on this, but it's always great to hear perspectives and these questions come up in these forums. And maybe, that's something we could look at in the future, but at this point in time, we do not collect data on that information.
But I do just want to acknowledge that that's a fascinating question. And I think that it's certainly one that I think warrants more research, which really is around how international scholars coming to the United States have a successful journey and have a successful appointment. And I often think that funding, of course, is a huge factor. So I welcome this. I thank you for this question, because I do think that more research could be done on this topic.
Thank you so much. And now sort of turning more to the economic impact. Is there a mechanism currently available to show the economic impact of international scholars on our states and communities, similar to one that you already have for the Open Doors International Student Census?
Yeah, another amazing question. I love all of these recommendations. We do not currently do this. Many of you probably know that for our economic impact analysis, we work very closely with NAFSA on this and the economic impact tool. And they help us really design the algorithm for how economic impact is calculated by institution, by state. But this is an incredible recommendation, and certainly one that we can think about in terms of how we would be able to, or may be able to, quantify the contribution and the economic impact of international scholars at these institutions. I will just chime in here, Leah, that I see another comment from Erin Wish that says that she also noticed in our tables this year that our categories are listed in alphabetical order, including our categories on gender, and that she appreciates this update. And Erin, I want to thank you for that, because as data lovers, we are constantly thinking about how we present our data, ensuring that our data in its presentation is not biased, and presenting as much of a representative picture, not only in the data we present, but also in the categories that we present. So we have actually made a very intentional shift throughout our tables. Some we still do in ascending order by size of the data, or by kind of ascending order. But for a number of other categories and a number of other data tables that we do, we really have made a conscious decision to present data alphabetically rather than in ascending order.
Thanks, Mirka. I think we have another question that possibly is not related to our international scholars data set, but our international student data set. So I want to just make that clarification before I read the question here. And perhaps the individual who wrote it could also write in if we're getting this wrong right now. But the question is asking how to access enrollment numbers to community colleges by country or region. So the enrollment is what is making me think this is about international students rather than scholars. Will you begin to separate the community college numbers from undergraduate counts in regular publications? Julie, do you want to share sort of what we currently have available for international students regarding community college tables and that are accessible?
Absolutely. So this is a great question. So we certainly are very much interested in looking at the data on international students at community colleges. And in fact, we will have a presentation at the Community Colleges for International Development just this weekend on this topic as well. But aside from the conference presentation, we do have community college tables available on our website. So if you type in the search for community colleges, it should pull up some of our information on community colleges, which are often referred to as associates colleges throughout our data set. The other thing that I want to call out and mention here is that we have just done a major update in terms of putting out fact sheets by country. I think many of you who may have followed our data for many years will note that we have always produced fact sheets for the top 25 places of origin. And we just launched our student mobility fact sheets, and they are updated to include all places of origin at this point in time. So if you're interested in data on a specific country or place of origin, please do go to our website and look at the student mobility fact sheets. And on these fact sheets, we have included the proportion of students by country at community colleges, along with other institutional types as well. So that is a great resource that we're really happy to have updated and made available to the field.
Thank you, Julie. And the individual who wrote in said that we were answering it in the right direction. So happy to do that for you. If you have any further clarification questions, please let us know. Returning to international scholars, I think we've got a great question here as well. Is it possible to break out the data by how many scholars are first-time visitors versus scholars who are repeat visitors or have had multiple visits over the course of the year or even at different institutions in 1 year? Mirka, do you want to take this?
Yeah, no, this is a great question. I'm actually going to bring Julie into this answer as well, because it's one we have asked, certainly over time, how we capture the scholar numbers, how we capture scholar data, and first time versus repeat. We haven't not really been able to disaggregate the data in that way, but I do want to talk a little bit about why our duration data has been very exciting. So for the last 3 years, we have been capturing data on the duration of appointments. So again, we might not be able to understand if a scholar goes to one institution and then goes to another. Frankly, if it's a new visa, if it's a new appointment, that scholar will be counted again. And I think that that's valid. I think duration has been what's been very interesting to us to really look at, which is how long are the appointments that scholars are coming to the United States on. And Julie, I was wondering if you could provide some insight, because we now have been collecting that data for 3 years, right?
That's correct. This was an area, as Mirka noted, I think that there was a lot of interest in better understanding this population, particularly as we know scholars may be on different visa types. And so just understanding how long were scholars coming to the United States. So being able to track that information and see that there are scholars coming for all durations. You know, it's almost, you've got about 30% who are here for under a year and maybe just coming for that very quick visit, but engaging in, you know, academic discussions and dialogue with institutions. To those who may be coming for 3 years up to over 5 years. So that's certainly something that we've been excited to begin tracking. We understand it's been an unusual time to begin looking at this information, but I think it's an important data point that we'll be able to carry forward into the future.
But just another plug to say, you know, there's so much more research that can be done on some of these topics. So this one in itself could just be another incredible research topic, dissertation topic, perhaps. The fact that scholars, international scholars, do come to the United States for the duration of time that we do, because again, our duration data has been largely showing us that international scholars that we report on in Open Doors, by and large, are coming for about 1 to 3 years. But it would be incredibly interesting if there was a survey done, a separate survey or any separate research done on the trajectories of international scholars, if they are coming back, if there are repeat appointments, if they are coming to different institutions, if they're finishing one appointment and then starting another appointment at another institution. This would be fascinating, I think, and certainly is an area that could have incredible further research done.
Thank you so much. I just want to take this moment to ask the audience if there are other questions. If you can, please enter them into the chat now. I know we have a few queued up here, but we're almost at the end of our queue. And I think there's a lot of questions around who is a scholar and that definition of the different visa types. So I'm going to ask this one here. Do you track how many of the J1s change their status to H1B or LPR? And kind of adding to this, maybe could you share with us a little bit about what you do know about those visa types and where we may recommend some resources for folks who want to dig deeper on the visa types?
Excellent. So I can get us started on this. So we do not track how many scholars change their visa status, as the person noted, going from a J1 to say an H1B. So that's not something that, again, we have information, but again, an interesting research topic for others in the field as well to look at in terms of that overall. As Mirka noted, we do have some of the data on visas based within our print publication. So we do collect data on the number of international scholars who are not only on the J1 scholar visa and H1B visa, which people have noted, but also scholars who may be on an O1 visa, a TN, a B visa, or even those who are on F1 OPT visas, because we know that some of the F1 OPT students who then graduate go on to become researchers at colleges and universities. So we have included that in our categorizations as well, and have information on that.
I think one of the things I want to say, I'm not sure if this is related to the visa question or another question, is to just acknowledge the comment from Nicole, which really does speak to how the answers to some of these questions are very difficult because organizations have different mechanisms to capture this data. So one of the things we've been trying to do in Open Doors on the Scholar Survey is to ask the base amount of questions that we think or expect that institutions are able to answer. Most of those questions are frankly regarding that scholar's appointment at that institution at that time for that appointment. That's really the extent to which they can answer questions about the scholar. And so really that is what limits us in terms of what data we can get from institutions. So I do completely agree with you, Nicole. I think for some of these questions, it would really require a survey that is done directly with international scholars to understand their trajectories. And because the Open Doors Scholar Survey that data is collected from institutions, we just have the limitation of what that institution can tell us about its scholars and their appointments.
Thank you. And then I'm just wondering, Julie, Mirka, are there some resources for individuals who are interested in knowing a bit more about visas that go beyond our data and the information that we're collecting, that we can point individuals to who are trying to understand the different visa types that are out there and what they mean?
Yeah, I mean, I will also say our Open Doors team is an incredible resource. So what I would actually say, I think this is a question from Khalil, I would say please reach out to our team, opendoors@iie.org. We can help you understand better some of the visa categories that we do capture in our Open Doors Scholar Survey. I will also say that our new Open Doors website, it's not so new anymore, I guess, it's been around for 2 years now, has an incredible methodology page, and we include a methodology for each of our surveys. So I would also encourage you to go there to seek some of the answers to questions you may have. But if you have any questions about visa categories, how we define them, and how they are captured, or what data goes into the data that is captured in the International Scholar Survey, please do reach out to us at opendoors@iie.org, and our incredible team will be able to answer your questions.
And our website address, once again, opendoorsdata.org. I think many people would like to go there and explore more. We welcome your questions and comments as you explore the website, what you have found easily and what you're looking for that you hope is on there, and maybe we can help you find it better.
I love all of these comments that are coming in. They're not only questions, but they're also comments. And the reason I am impressed by some of the comments that you all have made is because you are thinking much like us about the broader impacts and trends that the international scholar data can lead us to kind of hypothesize that and think about. And so there's a comment from Holly, which says if there could be interest in tracking international scholar career outcomes. I recognize it would be a big effort, but it would be helpful for looking at trends and success rates for international scholars interested in either remaining in the US beyond their initial appointment, or I would even say that trajectory that could be their return to their home country and what teaching or research they might do once they return. So this is another incredible research opportunity. Again, very likely would require some very specific surveying done of international scholars. We do not have the capabilities really outside of our Open Doors data to look at individual scholars and career outcomes. We don't have a way to really be mapping, for example, their visa or their career trajectories. But I do think it would be fascinating. And again, what I would like to stress is I think it would actually be fascinating to not only look at scholars who may be staying in the United States for additional appointments or other career opportunities, but actually also international scholars who then return home or go to a third origin place and really can then gather the skills, can leverage this opportunity to then apply that to their research or their teaching at their next appointment.
Wonderful. Thank you. If there are any other questions out there, please send them in. This is your final opportunity to ask Mirka and Julie all the questions you've been wondering about international scholars in the United States. And I see a wonderful resource that Holly is also willing to share. If helpful, I think this is University of California, San Francisco, Career Outcomes for Postdocs based on citizenship. They have a data table. There's a consortium of biomed institutions that track beyond UCSF, but would love to learn more about biomedical institutions as well. So for those of you that were interested in looking for that data, we'll push that information out there so everyone can see that in the Q&A column as well from Holly. Thank you for sharing the postdoc site at ucsf.edu. Wonderful, thank you. And with that, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today on this beautiful February day to hear about international scholars in the United States. Please continue to send any questions to opendoors@iie.org and enjoy exploring our website. Once again, opendoorsdata.org. We hope that you will find all of the information you are looking for there in our annual release tab for the international scholars in the United States. Thank you and have a wonderful day, evening, morning.